It was the start of July when my friends Leela, Jess, and I pulled into the driveway of our rented beach house at Gilgo Beach. The sun was shining brightly, and the sound of the waves crashing against the shore filled the air. We were all buzzing with excitement for the weekend, a much-needed escape from the city. All we wanted was to soak up some sun, enjoy a few drinks, and relax by the ocean. As we stepped out of the car, I took a moment to admire the house. It was a charming little beach cottage with large windows that overlooked the sea. The view was absolutely breathtaking. It felt like our own little slice of paradise. "I can't believe we're finally here," Jess exclaimed, grinning from ear to ear. The beach was unusually quiet that morning, almost too quiet, but that didn't bother us. We were all in full vacation mode. After unpacking our bags and settling in, we decided to take a dip in the ocean while it was still early and relatively empty. The sky was painted in vibrant shades of orange and pink, making the scene feel magical as we sprinted toward the water, laughing and splashing around. The ocean felt refreshing against our sun-kissed skin, and we were having the time of our lives. We splashed and played like children, forgetting all about our worries back in the city. But then, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. At first, I didn't think much of it. There was a guy standing a bit farther down the beach, too far away for me to make out his face. He stood still, staring right at us. "Do you guys see that?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Jess and Leela turned to look, their playful laughter fading as they followed my gaze. The guy started walking toward us, and with every step he took, I wished more and more that we hadn't come out here. He was tall, wearing a crumpled button-down shirt and jeans, which seemed strange for the beach. His hair hung over his face, obscuring his features, but I could see his mouth twisted into a creepy grin, as if he was enjoying some secret joke. "You girls out for a swim?" he called out, his voice rough and gravelly, as if he hadn't spoken in days. Leela, always the brave one, tried to brush it off. "We're just going in," she said, but he didn't move. His eyes were locked on Jess, who was still waist-deep in the water. As he got closer, that eerie grin grew even wider. "You ought to drop by my camp," he said, nodding toward the trees beyond the dunes. "It's over there. It'd be nice to have a drink and get out of the wind." Jess's face went pale. "No thanks," she snapped, clearly creeped out. The guy chuckled to himself as if he found the whole situation amusing. "You sure? It's a quiet spot." "Good stories," he replied, his tone unsettling. I felt my stomach twist into knots. "We're leaving," I said, trying to sound confident. We all turned and started walking back toward the house, but I could feel his eyes on us the entire way. That grin didn't fade, and I could feel a chill creeping up my spine. Once we were safely inside, we locked the door behind us, trying to shake off the encounter. "He's probably just some weirdo," Leela said, attempting to reassure us, but none of us really believed it. We were all on edge, glancing at the windows, half expecting him to reappear at any moment. That night, we settled in for a movie and some wine, trying to unwind after the unsettling encounter. The big windows that overlooked the beach were beautiful in the daylight, but as darkness fell, they began to feel like giant black holes, as if something was lurking outside. "Oh my God, I feel like someone's out there," Jess whispered, darting her eyes toward the windows. I attempted to laugh it off. "You're just freaking yourself out." But deep down, I felt it too. It was too quiet, too still. Then, a loud bang echoed from outside, making us all jump. "What was that?" Leela asked, her voice quivering. The noise came again, louder than before, seemingly from the back of the house. My heart raced as I slowly stood up. trying to calm my nerves. I opened the curtain, and my blood ran cold. There, smeared across the window, was a handprint, as if someone had pressed their hand against the glass and dragged it down. It was stained red. "Oh my God," I whispered, backing away just as Jess and Leela rushed over to see. Our faces went pale as we stared at the bloody handprint. "That looks bad," Leela said, rummaging through her bag for her phone. "We should call the cops." We all huddled together in the room, looking out the window, anxiously waiting for the police to arrive. Just before they got there, we heard something else, a slow, scraping noise outside, like someone was dragging something along the walls of the house. The sound circled the house, growing louder with every pass. By the time the cops arrived, the noise had vanished, and the guy was nowhere to be found. All they found were footprints in the sand and the blood on the window. The police said it was probably just some local fooling around, but I could see the skepticism in their eyes. "You girls should be careful," one officer said, glancing around the beach. "We've had some reports of strange behavior lately." That night, we hardly slept. Every little noise made us jump, and every creak of the house felt like a threat. Around 3 a.m., I thought I heard something, a soft knock on the window, just loud enough to notice. I didn't dare check, I couldn't bring myself to do it. The next morning, we packed our things and left the beach house early. None of us wanted to be there any longer, and the drive back home was eerily silent. Not one of us spoke a word, as if we all wanted to forget what happened. 3 years later, while scrolling through my phone, something caught my eye. Serial killer arrested in connection to Gilgo Beach murders. My heart raced as I clicked on the article. There he was, the same guy from the beach, with that creepy grin staring back at me from the mugshot. My stomach dropped as I realized what could have happened to us that weekend. I quickly sent the article to Leela and Jess, my hands shaking. "It was him," I typed, struggling to believe it. "The guy who was outside our window. He's a dreaded killer." My mind raced as I thought about how close we came to a terrible fate. Aunt Clara had always been the black sheep of the family, mysterious and reclusive. I never imagined inheriting anything from her. She was often whispered about in hushed tones during family gatherings. When I learned that she left me her beach house, where she was found dead, I was filled with mixed emotions. "Let's turn it into an adventure," my boyfriend Alex suggested, his tousled blonde hair and infectious grin making me feel a bit safer. So, we packed up his old Jeep and set off for the coast, determined to make the best of it. As we arrived at the beach house, a chill ran down my spine. The once grand Victorian stood weathered and decaying, its paint peeling like dead skin. The ocean roared behind it, waves crashing against jagged rocks. "This feels more like a haunted house than a beach house," I joked, trying to lighten the mood. "It's just old. Let's see what we can make of it," Alex replied, sounding optimistic. We stepped inside, greeted by a musty smell and dust particles dancing in the stale air. The floors creaked beneath our feet, and faded portraits lined the walls, their stern ancestors seemingly watching our every move. While exploring the house, we stumbled upon a door hidden behind a heavy bookshelf. "Look at this," Alex exclaimed as we heaved the shelf aside, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. "Should we go down?" I asked, excitement and apprehension swirling inside me. "Of course. We came here for an adventure, right?" Alex replied, his enthusiasm contagious. Armed with flashlights, we slowly descended into the basement. What we found there was chilling. Strange symbols were etched into the stone walls, circles, stars, and unfamiliar runes. In the center of the room stood an altar draped in crimson cloth, adorned with candles, bones, and a locket I recognized as Aunt Clara's. What was she into? I wondered aloud, a sense of unease creeping over me. Alex picked up a worn book from the altar. "Looks like some kind of journal," he said, flipping through its pages. That night, sleep eluded me. When I finally drifted off, vivid nightmares consumed me. I saw Aunt Clara, her long silver hair flowing as she chanted in a language that grated against my ears. Shadowy figures danced around a fire, and the symbols from the basement glowed ominously. I jolted awake, my heart racing. The room was cold, and the curtains fluttered even though the windows were closed. Over the next few days, the unease grew. Objects didn't stay where we left them, and the old radio turned on by itself, playing static-filled tunes from decades past. Alex seemed distant, his cheerful demeanor fading. "Are you feeling okay?" I asked one evening, concerned. "Just tired," he replied, running a hand through his hair. "This place is giving me the creeps. Should we leave?" "No," I insisted. "I spoke with a contractor about fixing things up. We can make this place amazing." I wanted to believe it could be transformed, to turn it into a warm home instead of a haunted relic. But the unsettling events continued. One night, as we were getting ready for bed, we heard a loud crash from the kitchen. "What was that?" I whispered, my heart pounding in my chest. "Let's check it out," Alex said, trying to sound brave. We tiptoed down the hall, our flashlights casting shaky beams of light. The kitchen was dark, and the atmosphere was heavy with an unseen presence. When we turned the corner, we found a chair had toppled over, its legs splayed awkwardly on the floor. "Maybe the wind?" I suggested, but even I didn't believe it. We picked up the chair and looked around, but everything else seemed untouched. The following night, as I was brushing my teeth, I caught a glimpse of something in the mirror, a fleeting shadow behind me. I spun around, but the hallway was empty. Shaking it off, I went to bed, but sleep continued to elude me. The more we explored, the more strange things happened. We found old photos of Aunt Clara with people I didn't recognize, faces twisted in fear and pain. It was as if they had been part of something dark and sinister, something she had kept hidden. Alex and I decided to dig deeper. We returned to the basement and found more journals, filled with bizarre rituals and accounts of encounters with the other side. It spoke of spirits, of sacrifices, and of a powerful entity that could grant wishes in exchange for blood. My heart raced as I read the words aloud, a chill running down my spine. "This can't be real," I whispered. Alex's face turned serious. "We need to get out of here," he said. "This isn't just creepy, it's dangerous." But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was tied to this place somehow. Aunt Clara had left it to me for a reason, and I was determined to uncover the truth. "Let's just stay one more night," I pleaded. "We'll search for answers in the morning." That night, I barely slept. The shadows danced on the walls, whispering secrets I couldn't grasp. I woke to a feeling of dread, the air thick with something sinister. When I turned to Alex, I found him staring blankly at the wall, his expression vacant. "Alex?" I called, but he didn't respond. I shook him gently, panic rising in my chest. "Alex, wake up." He finally blinked, his eyes glassy and unfocused. "Did you hear that?" he mumbled, his voice distant. "Hear what?" I asked, fear creeping in. "It's calling to me," he said, his face pale. "I can feel it. It wants me." "Who wants you?" I pressed, terrified. "I don't know," he whispered, his breath quickening. "But it's strong." I knew then that we were in over our heads. I grabbed his hand and pulled him to the stairs. "We have to leave. Now." We hurried up the stairs, my heart racing. As we reached the front door, I felt a sudden cold breeze rush past me, sending shivers down my spine. I glanced back one last time and saw a shadow flicker at the edge of my vision, just out of reach. I yanked the door open, and we sprinted to the Jeep. The engine roared to life, and we sped away from the beach house, leaving behind the haunting memories and the weight of Aunt Clara's secrets. As we drove, the sun began to rise, casting warm light over the dark waves. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching us, lurking just out of sight. I glanced at Alex, who was silent, lost in his thoughts. "Are you okay?" I asked, reaching for his hand. He turned to me, his eyes searching mine. "I don't know if we'll ever truly be okay after this," he said, his voice heavy with dread. "But at least we got out." And as we drove away from the beach, I couldn't help but wonder what secrets the house still held, and if we had truly escaped its dark grasp. He arrived to help us estimate the cost of renovations, but something felt off. His patience was wearing thin, and he snapped at small things, revealing a sense of urgency and irritation that made the atmosphere tense. I sensed that he was determined to uncover something buried deep within the walls of our beach house. Unsure of what to do, I decided to dig into Aunt Clara's journal, hoping it might shed light on the strange occurrences surrounding us. As I flipped through the pages, I was struck by her neat handwriting. It revealed a shocking truth. She was involved with a group trying to achieve eternal life through soul transference. This was no ordinary quest for immortality. Aunt Clara truly believed she could cheat death, but it was her last entry that sent chills down my spine. The vessel must be of my bloodline or one bound by love. The ritual nears completion. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked behind me. I turned, startled. "What are you reading?" His voice was flat and devoid of emotion, sending a shiver down my spine. "Just some of Aunt Clara's writings," I replied, feeling uneasy. She was disturbed. He stepped closer, shadows hiding his face. "Maybe you should leave it alone," he warned, a hint of menace creeping into his tone. That night, the nightmares became more intense. I saw Alex standing next to Aunt Clara, both of them chanting in unison as they moved closer to me. Their voices echoed in my mind, haunting me even as I slept. I woke up to find Alex gone from the bed, and a wave of panic swept over me. "Alex, where are you?" I searched the house frantically, my heart racing. I finally found him in the basement, standing in front of the altar, a dark silhouette against the flickering candlelight. Symbols on the walls glowed faintly, casting an eerie light over him. "Alex, what are you doing?" I asked, my voice trembling. He turned slowly, a sinister smile creeping across his face. "She chose me, Nadia. It's an honor." My heart sank. Fear gripped me as I backed away. "You're scaring me. Let's go back upstairs." He advanced toward me, his intentions clear. "Don't you see? She promised me eternity." I dashed up the stairs, slamming the door behind me. My mind raced with thoughts of the journal. I had to do something. It suddenly made sense. I searched frantically for a way to reverse the ritual, my fingers trembling as I flipped through the pages. They stuck together until I found a passage about breaking the connection. The ritual needs an anchor. Destroying it will sever the link. The locket on the altar had to be the anchor. Gathering my courage, I headed back to the basement, but to my surprise, Alex was nowhere in sight. I grabbed the locket, its metal cold against my skin, feeling the weight of its significance. That was when Alex's heavy voice echoed from the stairs. "You can't stop us." I looked up, horrified to see him clinging to the ceiling like a lizard. his body twisted in an unnatural way. I screamed in fear as he lunged at me, but I dodged him and raced up the stairs, bursting out onto the beach. The moon cast an eerie glow on the restless sea. I could hear footsteps behind me. "Leave me alone." He caught up, grabbing my wrist with an iron grip. "It's too late. She will live again," he said with a twisted grin. Desperate, I yanked my arm free and accidentally hurled the locket into the ocean. A piercing scream filled the air, not just from Alex, but layered with Aunt Clara's voice. He collapsed onto the sand, convulsing. I knelt beside him as his breathing steadied, his eyes fluttering open. Relief washed over me. We left the beach house that very night, the first rays of dawn breaking as we drove away. We never returned. I put it up for sale and decided to move on. Weeks later, as I reflected on that trip, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had escaped something dark. I had been planning the beach trip for weeks, a chance to unwind before finals and celebrate my 21st birthday. My Uncle Robert offered his luxurious beach house, a modern glass structure perched on a private stretch of coastline. It was the perfect getaway, and my friends couldn't wait to join me. As we pulled up the long driveway, the house stood like a jewel against the waves. My friend Mia leaned out of the car window, amazed at the view. Ethan and Liam, our college friends, unloaded the bags, while Sarah, always the photographer, snapped pictures of everything. Inside, the house was even more impressive. Open spaces, sleek furnishings, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views. We chose our rooms and settled in, laughter filling the halls, our excitement palpable. That afternoon, we hit the beach. The water was perfect, and the stress of school melted away with each wave that crashed against the shore. We splashed and played until our laughter echoed across the sand. Later, as we lounged on the deck, Mia frowned at her phone. "That's weird," she said, showing me a photo on her screen. It was a picture of her from earlier that day, standing on the beach, but the angle was off, as if someone had taken it from a distance. "I didn't take this, and no one else had my phone," she insisted, her brow furrowing in confusion. "Maybe it was a mistake," I suggested. Mia shook her head. "I know my photos, this wasn't me." We tried to laugh it off, but an uneasy feeling settled among us like a heavy fog. That evening, Sarah went to shower. When she emerged, wrapped in a robe, her dark hair dripping, she looked disturbed. "Did someone come into the bathroom?" "No, why?" I asked, puzzled. "My towel's gone." "I took yours," I said, but it didn't explain the missing towel. A couple of hours later, a scream echoed from her room. We rushed in to find Sarah staring at her bed. There lay her towel, neatly folded, with a note on top. "I see you." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Very funny, guys." We all denied it, a chill creeping down my spine. The mood shifted from playful to tense as darkness enveloped the house. I heard faint footsteps above, and I sat up in bed, straining to listen. The steps moved slowly, deliberately. I nudged Mia, who was sharing the room. "Is there someone on the roof?" We woke the others and sent the boys to investigate. They found nothing, but the unsettling feeling lingered. The next morning, Liam decided to take a swim to clear his head. When he returned, his face was pale. "All right, who's messing with me?" he demanded. He pointed to his shoes hanging atop a tree near the patio. "Look at this." Ethan glanced around suspiciously. Would someone really spy on us? Determined to uncover the truth, we agreed to search the house thoroughly. In one of the guest bedrooms, Ethan noticed the air vent looked tampered with. "Hand me a chair," he said. He stood on it and peered inside, then recoiled in shock. "There's a camera in there." What? We all gasped, stepping closer to see. He pulled out a small device with wires trailing behind it. Why would there be a camera? A heavy silence fell over us as we gathered in the living room, fear creeping into our minds. You think someone's been watching us? Liam asked, his voice shaky. This is insane. Who would do this? Maybe someone broke in, but there were no signs of forced entry, I said, piecing the puzzle together. The realization hit me like a wave. What if it's someone we know? All eyes turned to me, and I felt the weight of their suspicion. My uncle had always been eccentric. I recalled how eager he was for us to visit, the odd way he smiled when he handed me the keys. I don't know, but we need to get out of here. We hurried to pack our things, but as we approached the front door, it slammed shut. Uncle Robert stood there, his usually neat appearance disheveled, eyes wild and manic. Leaving so soon, Mr. Hayes? He asked, a sinister smile spreading across his face. What's going on? Ethan demanded, stepping forward, his bravado faltering. Just ensuring my guests are entertained, Uncle Robert replied, his tone chilling. Panic set in as we backed away, our hearts racing. Why are you doing this? I asked, my voice trembling. He chuckled softly. Observation, my dear, to capture raw emotion, fear, desperation. It's pure art. Liam lunged, trying to push past him, but Uncle Robert was surprisingly strong, shoving him back and pulling out a gun. Now, no need for violence. Ethan grabbed a lamp and smashed it against the wall, creating a distraction. We scattered, racing through the house as Uncle Robert's laughter echoed ominously behind us. I ducked into the study, searching for anything that could help. On the desk lay a series of photographs, candid shots of us from the weekend, each one more invasive than the last. My heart raced as I realized how long this had been going on. We need to find another way out. There's a door in the basement that leads outside, I suggested, urgency lacing my words. We regrouped, adrenaline pumping, and made our way to the basement. The room was filled with monitors displaying live feeds from hidden cameras, showing our every move. Our privacy had been completely invaded. Sarah covered her mouth in shock, her eyes wide with horror. But then Uncle Robert's voice boomed over a speaker. There's no escape. Ethan found a metal rod and pried open a small window. One by one, we crawled out into the night, fear propelling us forward. Outside, the wind howled, and the waves crashed violently against the shore. We sprinted toward the car, but our hearts sank as we discovered the tires were slashed, leaving us stranded. What now? I exclaimed, panic rising. Headlights appeared in the distance, a car approaching. Desperate, we waved it down. It was a police cruiser. I rushed forward, relief flooding my body. Please help us. My uncle is trying to hurt us. That's when Uncle Robert emerged from the house, his face twisted in rage, eyes wild with madness. You're mine. The officer quickly got us into the car, radioed for backup, and sped away. At the station, we learned the truth. Uncle Robert had a history of voyeurism and psychological manipulation. The authorities had been tracking him after previous incidents, but he always evaded capture, slipping through their fingers time and again. I can't believe I didn't see it, I said, shaking my head in disbelief. You couldn't have predicted this, Ethan said, putting his arm around me, his warmth comforting in the aftermath of the chaos. Uncle Robert was imprisoned, but using his influence, he got out in just 8 months, promising not to contact us again. Yet, with someone like him out there, there's always that terrible feeling of being watched, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked within the family. As we drove away from the station, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. But I knew the scars of that experience would linger. I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadow of Uncle Robert would always be with us, a constant reminder of the fragility of safety.